Mike Jones, talking to you about the HPA project in WA, Lake Hope project, and its impact minerals. Please welcome Dr. Mike Jones.
Thanks very much, and great to be here, and nice to be talking to a small but very select group of people. And so here today to talk about the Lake Hope project with a new player in HPA. And player is a play on words because it's a geological term for a salt lake. And this is Lake Hope. It's about 500 kilometres east of Perth. And we like to call it the magic lake in impact, not just because of the way that it looks at certain times of the day and certain times of the year, but believe it or not, in the top 2 meters of that lake is something in the order of between 10 and 20 billion, with a B, US dollars worth of high purity alumina. And we acquired the rights to an 80% of this project in March this year, and we believe that it's going to be a transformational acquisition for us. I set up Impact 16 years ago to look for a world-class ore body. They are few and far between. We've come close with a few small discoveries, haven't had the luck that we needed to find a big one, and I came across this on LinkedIn, believe it or not, and it is certainly starting to transform the company, and be happy to talk to you about it. This is deliberately blank because the scoping study will be out sometime in October, and what it's going to demonstrate is that we will be one of, if not the lowest cost producers of HPA, not just in Australia but globally. And that's hugely important when you're in the bulk commodity space, whether you're in HPA, you're in lithium, you're in coal, because if you're not the lowest cost producer, you won't make it through the cycle or down in that lowest cost quartile. And what the scoping study will show is that we will actually be a light year ahead of any other producer that we know of globally, and that's going to put us in a particularly strong position in the HPA market going forward. And so HPA, what is it used for? There are two key main uses. The first one is the separator between the anode and the cathode. So if you recall, a few years ago, the Samsung phones were exploding, and that's because the HPA wasn't doing its job of separating the two electrodes and causing a thermal decompression, or an explosion as they call them. And obviously they're used in lithium-ion batteries, and with the forecast demand and growth in lithium-ion batteries over the next decade, we should see significant growth in the HPA market. The second main use is actually in LEDs, so funnily enough in light globes, but also in micro LEDs that they're using in screens, both on your phones and increasingly, of course, in high-definition TVs. So Samsung, LG, etc., are all switching to micro LEDs where they use HPA. So again, another growth market, and there's a forecast supply deficit supposed to emerge in 2026. Most of current production comes from the Chinese and the Russians, so with a bit of friend-shoring that's going on, we should also see increasing demand from Europe and America for new sources of HPA. So what's high purity alumina worth? What is it? So it's 99.99%, or 4 nines, 4N. This is the benchmark purity. And it's currently selling at between 15 and 25,000 US dollars a tonne, and which gives a very high margin, high demand business. Most of the volume is in here, 3N and 4N. You will hear people talk about 5N, very pure material. You can command very high prices, but there's not much volume there. So this is the cream on the top. You really need to be building a business in the 4N space, and that's firmly where we're going to be focused. How much of the material have we got? Well, like many bulk commodities, we have a lot of it. There's 900,000 tonnes of alumina, most of which we can convert to HPA. And at a benchmark production of 10,000 tonnes a year, that's 90 years of production. So there's no shortage of HPA. It's all about how cheap you can produce the material. Where is the project? Lake Hope, as I said, 500 kilometres east of Perth. It's south of Southern Cross. It's on the main Hayden-Norseman Road in through here, and we're likely to be moving stuff up to Kalgoorlie to process it. And it's, as I said, it's a very magical spot. The resource is in 2 lakes in this Lake Hope player system through here, and we'll see one of the first advantages straight away is that there's a major fire break that basically comes down from the Hayden-Norseman Road right up to the edge of the lake. So we don't even need to put in a track to access this deposit. And as I mentioned, it's in the top 2 meters of this lake. And I'm going to argue very strongly that this is probably the perfect ore body. So this is Roland Gotthard. He discovered the project. He thought about what minerals we could produce alumina from, thought about a process that would work on those minerals, and then went out and discovered the deposit. It's quite an astonishing discovery. And this is how we drilled out $10 to $15 billion worth of HPA with a rubber hammer and a push tube. And the whole process cost us $60,000. So that's the best return on a drill program you're ever going to see in your entire career. And this is what it comes out looking like. It looks like plasticine. It's only 2 metres deep, and you're on relatively fresh granite in through here, so you don't sink into any mud. And it's naturally micron to nano-sized particles. And that gives us immense advantages in terms of the kinetics for putting this stuff into solution. So this is the East Lake, and high-grade material here. This is 27% alumina in through here. We're just going to be able to push off the side of this track in through here with a digger and some trucks. There's plenty of space for a ROM pad and buildings and stuff in through here. We won't need any water, we won't need any electricity. And there's probably a good 10 to 15 years material just sitting right through there. This is me, as I like to joke, doing the pre-strip. And we see we're not sinking into anything. So we've got high grade, and I'm arguing as well it's going to be the shallowest, highest grade open pit anywhere. There's no crushing or grinding required. It's cheap, it's free digging ore. We're going to dig this stuff up with a digger, put it on quad trucks, and take it to a permitted industrial site in Kalgoorlie. So that is actually going to speed up the permitting process, not just for the mining, but also for the processing. So we believe we can get this all through in the next 2 to 3 years, as opposed to 5 to 7 if you were doing a standard nickel, copper, gold, or lithium project. We're going to leave behind a minimal environmental footprint. There's only going to be a hole 1 metre deep, biologically sterile, not a thing lives in it, and it's got a pH of 3. Anything that was living in it is dissolved. Very low carbon emissions, obviously, and then limited long-term rehab requirements. I can keep listing, permitting to be fast-tracked, and most importantly, in June, we got heritage clearance. So there are no impediments to us mining this lake. Environmental studies will start in October. So we worked very closely with the Naju people. As I say, no issues with heritage there. We will negotiate the mining agreement as part of the mining lease application, which will go in next month. So the unique nature of the materials there, as I mentioned, and in particular the very fine grained nature of it, it's nanometer scale particles, actually gives you an infinite surface area. So we get unusual kinetic reaction in the leaching, and we can use sulfuric acid on this material. Most of our competitors are using hydrochloric acid, which is a more expensive acid, and also under high temperature requires high-grade surgical steel basically to build the plant, so the capex is significantly higher. So with the sulfuric acid approach, it's a much lower capex, and it makes things a lot easier to deal with and handle. So cheap reagents, we have saleable waste products. We're going to produce potash and gypsum, and that's another contributor to the fact we will be one of the lowest cost, if not the lowest cost producer. Our initial work, we've already got great recoveries. We've achieved 4 nines. This is what it looks like. Nice piece of corundum for those of you into mineralogy. We're optimizing that at the moment, and there are other products that you can produce to be used in the battery architecture, aluminium nitrates, aluminium sulfates, and that's all part of our pre-feasibility study that's well underway. So the question is, will we be the lowest cost producer? So the current incumbents are the Chinese and the Japanese, and they produce their HPA by the refining of aluminium metal. So that aluminium has been mined as bauxite. It's gone through what's called the Bayer process. It's a very energy-intensive, environmentally unfriendly process. It produces a lot of red mud, which you might have read about, and then they refine that again into aluminium metal. And so their costs are sort of between $15,000 and $20,000 a ton. But over the last few years, there's been a push, mainly driven by ASX juniors, to convert to a hydrometallurgical approach to producing HPA. And the 2 leaders in the space are FYI Resources, who are doing hydrochloric acid leaching of kaolin. They've just got a $3 million grant from the WA government to help build their pilot plant. And the standout is A4N, or Alpha HPA. That's an amazing poster child story for the HPA space and can show what can happen if you get it right, which we'll come to. Their costings are around $6,000 to $7,000 a ton. And these figures are from 2020 and 2021. So no inflation since then. So their actual production cost is probably going to be reasonably higher, and we will be getting updates from them in the marketplace going forward. As are in 2023 dollars, this is our estimate, our target. I can tell you we're going to be significantly lower than that. It's an extremely strong place to be. I'll talk about Alpha HPA just quickly because, like us back in 2019, small market cap, they were a junior explorer looking to create HPA from nickel laterites. They came across a unique process similar to ours, but the solvent extraction process, and they discovered that it worked on a chemical feedstock that they could obtain relatively cheaply from Orica in their fertiliser and explosives business. And they proved then over the next couple of years they got material into qualification, offtake agreements coming in, and then they've really taken off and their market cap hit $1 billion and it's stayed up there since. So we believe that we can go on the same journey because we're going to be the lowest cost producer, and we'll be on the accelerator road to get that underway. I will say, after being in the business for a long time, PFS test work is not the sexiest thing to put out into the marketplace. So we do have a battery metals project, a significant number of nickel, copper, lithium, gold and rare earth anomalies, and never been drilled. We're a long trend from Julimar, big structures running through here. We're surrounded by Anglo-American on 3 sides in through here. They pegged this ground the day that we announced this particular acquisition here, and so obviously they were thinking of acting, and they've got an exploration office set up in Perth now and in Corrigan, so there's obviously lots of activity going on in and around there. We announced some airborne electromagnetic anomalies yesterday, and we'll be looking for a maiden drill program in the first quarter of next year. So Impact Minerals, we have been around for some time. We did a capital raise just recently. We're well funded. We've got $3.5 million in the bank. We're well supported by 2 German groups, family office out of Dusseldorf. They put in $3 million into the last capital raise. They're a 3rd generation industrial family and like the look of the project. And then ABC is an investor in a significant number of ASX juniors. Market cap has about doubled since we got the project, come back a little bit in the last few weeks, so this is a great time to be looking at Impact Minerals and put it on the watch list, and as we move forward. Because we've now got quite a concrete forward plan. Maiden resources out, scoping study should be out shortly, PFS well underway, and we will lodge the mining lease application next month. By the end of the year we should have marketing samples, and so the next couple of years are pushing through the PFS, DFS, getting the qualification as Alpha HPA have shown the way, and then look to sort of get into small scale production in 2026, which is when the supply deficit, not that I've ever seen one ever materialise, but supposed to be the supply deficit appearing in 2026. So it's a perfect timing. So I invite you to come along the journey with us. We do aim to be one of the lowest cost, if not the lowest cost producer of HPA globally. We have a unique deposit here in Western Australia. We've got a cost-disruptive metallurgical process which is well underway in the PFS. We're currently building out our capabilities in metallurgical processing and the final product specification, and that's the key to success in this business. And we certainly hope to deliver into a high margin growth market which is growing at a tremendous rate in the next few years. And yeah, look forward to going on that journey with you. Thanks very much. Yeah, sure.
Jump back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone for questions?
No, I can get back down again.
I've got one. It's,
Of course.
It's born of pure ignorance, unfortunately. I don't know much about HPA, and that sounds incredible. So I'm going to trust you to be honest and tell us what your biggest challenge is, and you can't say market recognition.
No, so the big thing in all bulk commodities, whether you're in HPA, silica sands, coal and things like that, it's all about the offtake agreement. So it's getting on to the qualification period and breaking into the current supply chains. And the thing that will attract them is cost, because we can undercut everybody.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Great,
Cheers.
thanks.